Când era mic, nu era în stare să înțeleagă sau să memoreze ceea ce se explică la școală. Din cauza unei leziuni pe creier, era cunoscut de elevi și de profesori ca fiind baiatul cu creierul rupt. Însă, după eforturi mari și sute de încercări, a reușit să devină un expert mondial în memorie și creier, împărtășindu-și astfel cunoștințele și tehnicile sale cu oameni precum Bill Gates, Elon Musk, președintele Bill Clinton sau actori de la Hollywood. Unul din citatele sale spune că dacă cunoașterea înseamnă putere, atunci învățatul este superputerea ta. Așa că hai să vedem care sunt 7 lucruri pe care tu le poți învăța de la Jim Kwik.
So the behaviors are reading each day and putting together your to-do list, and I think having your not to-do list is so important. Having been sleep deprived for so many years, I think a lot of people, I'm super sensitized to it, but I think one of the success rituals people should have is just going through and keeping a consistent not to-do list. And I think the most successful genius level individuals, one of the clues that they leave is their not to-do list is bigger than their to-do list, right? They don't check their phone in the morning. They don't take in, everything is hell yes or it's hell no, right? That's their filter system. They don't, they say no to good so they can say yes to great.
I have, like Larry King is the same way. He, we have breakfast here, and I'm always asking him, how you've interviewed everybody, right? Like, how do you do it? And I'm telling you, his belief is he has a belief that he's not smart enough, and that he'll always think that sometimes he won't make out until he says this. But I think he may say this publicly, so I think it's okay to share. Is that he feels like he's the least qualified, or the knowing in that room, and so when he's talking to people, people really feel his intent, that he's really listening to them and really wants to know what the answer is. And that's, that makes a great conversationalist, and certainly, a great journalist or an interviewer. And you just take the word listen, right? You take the word listen, scramble the letters, and it becomes a completely different word. It becomes silent, right? So I think if people just want to learn better, they want to have a better memory, just be silent and listen.
And so a lot of people always want to usually make a change on behavior. They want to get themselves to work out. They want to get themselves to meditate. They want to get themselves to read more each day. They want to get themselves to X, right? Or they want to stop some behavior. They want to stop smoking. They want to stop eating this food. They want to stop, I always tell people, stop checking your phone the first hour of the day.
I love that.
And that's like sacred time for me, because I think that if you want to be an elite mental performer or, real life superhero, you don't want to start off by checking the phone. We talked about this in the past, because you're training yourself to be reactive, right? You're getting your dopamine, you're frying your nervous system with all these likes, shares, comments, and everything else like that.
You've said, if I'm not mistaken, you sell your sovereignty.
We do.
If you start by checking your phone. I love that so much.
Because you're reacting and firefighting to everyone's everything that everyone wants. So you're not really you're not living, you've heard this many times, right? If you want to, you win the first hour of the day to win the rest, you win the day, right? And so.
All behavior is belief driven. All behavior is belief driven. In order to do a new behavior, you need an empowering belief that allows you to do that behavior. And so when we do this visualization exercise, it's not just limited to students, right? I do this with executives. I do this with athletes a lot. What did, I'll give you an example. What did Roger Bannister do in 1954? What is he famous for? The 4-minute mile, right? Throughout human history, nobody can run a mile in less than 4 minutes, right? And how was he able to do it? It wasn't just physical training, he would do mental training, right? He would visualize inside of his mind, just like you were visualizing how much further you could go, he would visualize himself crossing the finish line, looking at the clock, and it said 3:59. Because he knows what you know, that success is an inside-out process. Here's the thing, it's not you'll believe it when you see it. It's you'll see it when you believe it. Does that make sense? When you actually see it, when you believe it in here, because all behavior is belief driven. So he was able to do it because he saw 3:59 in his mind, then he was able to do it out here, right? And that's what entrepreneurs do, right? Entrepreneurs solve big problems, they create new value because they have this vision for what they want to create in their mind, and then it becomes external, right? Inside out process. Be, do, have, share. So you have to be that before you be able to do it, to be able to have it. Now here's what I find interesting. I didn't find it interesting that he broke the 4-minute mile by visualizing. What I found interesting is what happened after that. Throughout human history, nobody can run a mile in less than 4 minutes. One person does it. What happens after that? Yeah, everyone starts running a 4-minute mile. Dozens of people start doing it in the next couple years. Now let me ask you a question. Was there big advancements in shoe technology and nutritional support and training methodology? No, what was the change? A change in belief. Because you know what the belief was back then? The belief was the human heart couldn't sustain a sub 4-minute mile. So it would explode in your chest. Now, if you believe that, would that keep you from running a sub 4-minute mile? Like that would keep me from jogging, right? Nobody would do anything because no one would do anything because all behavior is belief driven, right? Then all of a sudden one person does it, then everybody starts to do it, right? And that's the power of a belief.
Dude, I'm a huge believer in identity driving behaviors. I have a hard time explaining to people though how to adopt a new identity. How have you done it in your own life? I think that's the best place to start.
I mean, my identity, obviously this is a work in progress, right? I would say that I would start with they call it the 2 smallest words in the English language, but they're the 2 most powerful words in the English language. It's I am, right? I am, because whatever you put after that determines your destination or your destiny, right? And I think your identity is who you believe you are. And I feel like when we're talking about playing to the edge of our limits and really playing there and living in that place where we're stretching, I do believe, and I get inspired every time I see your Insta story. You're like, it's like 4:30 and you're working out, you're doing your work, but that's who you are, right? You don't have to fight it because you can't imagine yourself not doing that. And that's the level of that I think is what's most important. So I would think about going through an exercise, and I've done this with friends. I've had them sit, or in groups, we do these conferences and such, and I have people pair up with someone they don't know, and what they're gonna do is they're gonna do an exercise, I am, and they're gonna talk about, they're literally gonna fill in the blanks for 3 minutes until I call time.
Wow.
So you have to go like, and you could do this right now, like if you were to fill in I am blank, like I would say, I am a student, I am a teacher, I am a son, I am all this, and
Right.
But eventually I'll get to a point where I don't know what else to say, and that's what the real interesting answers come out of, right? Because it's a great way for networking and knowing somebody else, but it also shows us this really big tapestry of our life to the point that we've gotten to right now, where I relate to these aspects of ourselves. And I think it's a nice exercise when we talk about self-awareness being a superpower, really knowing who we think we are. Because if we don't believe that we're a public speaker, or we're a great parent, or we're a great learner or genius, then we'll never be able to reach our full potential, because that will always be the ceiling that we bump up against.
And when I said responsibility, with great responsibility comes great power. The most important thing to be responsible for is how you feel. Does that make sense? And who controls how you feel? How many people are feeling pretty good right now? Yeah, and notice that these kind of things, it's, you know why? Metaphorically, I look at you more like a thermostat than a thermometer. Is there a difference between a thermometer and thermostat? Yes or yes? A thermometer does what? What does a thermometer do? What's the function? Yeah, it takes the it reflects and it reacts to the environment. Is that true? It just reacts to the environment. And we are sometimes, we're thermometers. We react to the weather, if we're honest, the economy, to politics. We react to how people treat us sometimes. But is there a gap between how someone stimulates us and how we respond? Do we have choice? Yes or yes? The difference between a thermometer and a thermostat, though, is a thermometer reacts to the environment. What does the thermostat do, though? Yeah, it regulates, right? It helps manage. It sets a standard or a vision or a goal, and then what happens to the environment? It raises to be able to do that. Is there a difference? Yes or yes? And so that's where we're going back to responsibility. When we're talking about being responsible, the ability to be able to respond is how you feel about things, and also how you focus on things.
And then finally, the last G, I would say, for successful life in terms of mindset would be gratitude. And I really think gratitude is the grandfather, grandmother of like all the best emotions that you have, that people could go out there and try to get. But if they can't appreciate what they already have, everybody has like a vision board, right? Like a vision board, and they have like news magazine clippings of the house they want to live in, the relationship, and with their kids, and like what they want to learn, what they want their body to look like.
I was gonna redo mine today. That's funny.
But everyone has a vision board. But I love vision boards, and I have one also because I think that's the power of the mind and the unconscious. I think having a vision board is good, but I also think it's also right next to it. Have your gratitude board. Have a gratitude board of the things you've already accomplished. And be grateful for it. Like here's the magic question. I posted this on social media recently. I posted a question like, what if you only kept the things in your life tomorrow for the things that you're grateful for today? Like what if the only things that you had in your life tomorrow were the things that you're grateful for today? Would you tune into that? Because I feel like, how we are with the universe, that we can only build on success and the happiness that we have. And so I think being attuned and present to the gifts that we have, because most people who are listening to this have far more than 99% of the population in the world. So if you're able to listen to this and you have your hearing, you have some semblance of your health, you have a lot to be grateful for, and you should feel that also, because I also think it creates a strong foundation for you to be able to build on.
And so watch this. Let's play a game together. Let's try to collectively remember a number. Right? Let's stop, instead of like 200 plus numbers, let's collectively just come up with one number. We all write the same number down, right? And just for time's sake, so just raise your hand. Instead of doing single digits, let's do 2-digit numbers. So just raise your hand and say 27. In fact, let's say 27 is the first one. Write down 20. Everyone writes 27. And I'll repeat the number, and let's do the best we can to memorize this list. This will be a nice brain training exercise for all of us. So 27, so everyone writes 27. So raise your hand, yes. 94, so everyone writes what? 94, we got it. Yes, back center. 13. 13. Yes, sir. 21, blackjack. Is this all the volunteers? If we're having trouble coming up with numbers, we have to go in a totally different direction with E. 50. 88. Next one is 88. Bingo. What's that? 16 digits. Wow. That's at least what? 2 numbers, right? Okay. Let's do a couple more. Yes, back there. 47. 47. Okay. Yes. 12. How many single digits are we at now? 20? Okay, let's do a few more. Let's see what we can do here. Yes. 39. What's that? 39. Number 39. Yes. 19. Number 19. What'd you say? Yes, back there. 23. Number 23. And all the way in the back. 10? Yeah. 10. How many single digits are we at now? You're like a lot. This number's getting really big. 30? All right, let's stop there. Now, how would you go about memorizing this list? This long number, how would you go about memorizing it? Chunking? Let's see how many. Actually, let me see if I can remember. I should have actually memorized this while we're doing it. Cover your pages in the front row here. Let me see if I can remember these 30 digits. Wait, I need some encouragement here. All right. I'll do single digits. Ready? 2, 7, 9, 4. How are we doing so far? 1, 3, 2, 1, 5, 0, 8, 8. Good. 3, 1, 7, 5, 7. Ooh, no. That was so. 4, 7. Yes. Whoa. 1, 2, 3, 9. Is that right? 1, 9, 6, 9, 2, 3, 1, 0. Now, I don't do this to impress you. I do this to express to you what's possible, just like what this waitress did for me. right? She remembered everybody's order, and all of a sudden, I was like, wow, what else is possible? She was my Roger Bannister. Like, backwards? Well, maybe. Someone said back, well, what? How many people like to see me do this backwards? I need some energy here. All right, ready? Actually, let me try this. 0, 1, 3, 2, 9, 6, 9, 1, 9, 3, 2, 1. How are we doing? Yeah. 7, 4, 5, 7, 1, 3, 8, 8, 0, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1. 4, 9, 7, 2. I am actually, I'm actually putting a card game together after this, if anyone wants to play some cards. All kidding aside, so I will, the truth is, if you come up to me, if we happen to see each other like in the neighborhood or whatever, and just like, hey, I was in that class, do you remember that list? Like even 3 weeks from now, I literally would go, 2, 7, 9, 4, 1, 3, 2, 1, 5, 0, 8, 8, and so on. Because here's the thing. When you understand how your memory works, you could work your memory. When you understand how your brain works, you could work your brain, right? And so the truth is, every single one of you could do this. We just weren't taught how to do this, right? If anything, we were taught a lie, that somehow our intelligence, our potential, our memory is somehow fixed like our shoe size. But really what this is about, the essence of what we're talking about here is about transcending. Transcending. Ending the trance. That's what transcendence is for me. Ending this trance. Ending this mass hypnosis that somehow, we're limited. Somehow, like something is fixed, right? That our powers are something, that we're not as strong and capable as we are, that we're not enough, right?
For reading, most people read slowly because of, I'll give you 5 reasons people read really slow. Because sometimes being aware of what we're doing wrong is enough to sensitize us, like, oh yeah, I shouldn't eat that, or oh, I shouldn't do this way. So there's 2 parts to reading. There's reading speed and there's reading comprehension, right? It makes no sense to have fast reading speed if you don't understand what you read, right? And you can understand everything, but if you're reading like a snail, that doesn't help really much at all. So that's your reading efficiency, speed and comprehension. Now there's 5 things that disrupt that get in your way from optimizing that. So I would say the first one is lack of education. Like most people, reading is not something you're born with. It's a skill. And all skills are learnable, right? And so you want the right education. But most people, the last time they took a class called reading, like we have we have a speed reading course with over 150 students from over 150 countries online. But when we survey them, it's like, when's the last time you took a reading class before this? They're like 8 years old. Right, so get the right education. The second obstacle to effective reading that keeps people reading slow is lack of focus. Now, why can't people focus when they read? Right, you read something, you're reading an email, reading a website, you're reading a book, and your mind is everywhere. You're distracted, and I'll tell you the reason why. The reason why is like I feel like if I ask everyone to read faster, they feel like their comprehension will go down, right, across the board. And I'm here to say that. We test tens of thousands of people every single year, that the faster you read, the better your comprehension. It's the opposite. Because you have better focus. Now, here's the reason why. Most people, when they read, they feed this incredible supercomputer brain one word at and I can't even talk that slow because I'm from New York. But the challenge is even when I started to say those words slowly, think about what your mind started to do. It's like, oh man, and then if I spoke like that for the entire podcast conversation, you would start thinking about something else. You would get distracted. You would fall asleep. But isn't that what happens when you read? Most people, when they read, they get distracted. They think about something else. They start falling asleep. So most people read so slowly, then if you don't give your brain the stimulus it needs, it'll seek entertainment elsewhere in the form of distraction. So we get distracted because we're reading so slowly. So I'm here to say that you'll have better focus and better comprehension the faster you read. It's like driving a car. If you're going in your neighborhood 20 miles an hour, you're You're drinking your coffee, you're texting, you're doing your makeup, you're doing 5 different things when you're going slow. But if you're racing cars 200 miles an hour, you're not thinking about the dry cleaning. You're focused on what's in front of you. And that's the key. Same thing with reading and learning. And then finally, another obstacle is subvocalization. That's really the thing we need to get rid of. And it's too big of a super villain, if you will, to be able to overcome in one conversation. But the reason why we're so successful in our programs where we could triple people's reading speed is because we help to dramatically reduce subvocalization. Now, what's subvocalization? You ever notice when you're reading something to yourself, you hear that inner voice inside your head reading along with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully it's your own voice. It's not like somebody else's voice or something. Now, if you have the problem with it is if you have to say all the words to understand them, you can only read as fast as you can speak. That means your reading speed is limited to your talking speed, not your thinking speed, right? A lot of people are listening to this conversation and they listen to podcasts and they put it at a higher speed. They put it at 0.5 or 2.0 because you can understand at faster speeds, but nobody can talk that fast, right? And so you don't have to pronounce, you don't have to pick up a book and say a word like computer to understand what a computer is. Because 99% of all the words you see every day, you've seen thousands of times before. You don't have to pronounce them to understand them. Just like you don't have to pronounce stop, like when you see a stop sign and you understand it. So don't subvocalize. And finally, last 2 is bad habits that I could help you to overcome right now. I give you at least one technique is regression. Regression is like back skipping. You ever notice you're reading something, you find yourself going back and rereading words or maybe accidentally reading a whole line? So a lot of our time can be spent doing that, and that's a complete waste of time. And then the last one is limiting beliefs. We all have limiting beliefs, learned helplessness in terms of how smart we are, how good a reader are, and so on. So one brain hack on how to overcome regression and back skipping is using what they call a visual pacer. Now, a visual pacer is like your finger, a highlighter, a pen, a pencil, a mouse on a computer, using it to help keep your attention. Because what it does is your eyes are attracted to motion. So when you're underlining the words as you read, you're actually being pulled through your information as opposed to your attention being pulled apart. The other reason why you do it, interesting, in terms of your nervous system, certain senses work very closely together. Like your senses smell and taste are so closely linked, right? Like when you eat a great tasting peach, you're not tasting that peach, you're smelling that peach. But your sense of smell and taste are so closely linked, your mind doesn't perceive the difference. Just like your sense of smell and taste are so closely linked, so is your sense of sight and your sense of touch. That literally people using their finger while they read will say, I feel more in touch with my reading. I don't know what's going on. Because your senses are, even when you go to a little kid, you say, look at my keys, look at my keys. That kid will grab the keys because that little kid will feel like he or she needs to touch it in order to be able to see it. In fact, if you lose your sense of sight, how do you read?
Braille.
Yeah, exactly. Use your braille, use your fingers to be able to do it. So I would say a good brain tip. So this is the test, is don't take my word for it. Pick up a book that you have on your shelf, because we all have unread books there. Time yourself to read for 60 seconds. Count the number of lines you just read normally. And then pick up where you left off. But this time, just underline the words. Just underline the words. Don't skip anything. No fancy. Traditional speed reading will teach you to use your finger to write down the page or use it like an S form, but you're skipping big parts of the book. That's why traditional speed reading, people get the gist of what they read, but not really comprehend. But I'm saying don't skip anything. Underline everything. That second, then count the number of lines that sit for 60 seconds using your finger. That second number will be a lift of about 25 to 50% across the board. For every single one of your listeners across the board, just doing this 25, 50%. And granted, it's not 300% that we get through 30 days of training with programs that we do, but 50% is huge, right? A 50%, how many people would love to be able to, increase like any metric 50% in just one try, in terms of improve what they can lift, in terms of how much more they can run, any of those markers that they have. Money. How many people would love to get a 50% return on their investments last year?
Yeah.
Right? So reading takes time, and time is money. If you could the average person has to read about 4 hours a day. And I think you'll find that also, Clark, you're always online and you get all these emails, you're reading all these websites, you're doing all your research, 4 hours a day. If you could just double your reading speed, you save 2 hours a day. 2 hours a day. 2 hours a day over the course of a year is a lot of hours, right? 700 plus hours. Even saving 1 hour a day over the course of a year is 365 hours. 1 hour a day, 365 hours for the year, and that's 9 40-hour work weeks.